you guys as well. So, um, you know, well, if you've got comment questions, please, 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 because I'm doing this solo. So unless I just go into straight podcast thinking mode, I need some interaction. So you guys are gonna help me with that, no doubt about it. But how is everybody doing? Are you guys? I don't know. Is everybody angry with this team? Have you kind of taken a breath to like, okay, at least Dan Quinn's done something, and the injuries are just what they are. That there's only so much this team could do, no matter what. That's kind of where I'm at this stage. I mean, I don't have the same like emotional aspect the way you guys would, but the injuries are just too much. I mean, even this game alone, coming off a game against the Lions where they allowed the Lions to score on every single possession, every full possession, 8 for 8. And granted, the two guys I'm about to mention, and again, that's the fourth straight loss by at least 20 something points. The fact that Deron Payne, who granted was taken away early in that game because of the ejection, and Trey Amos also knocked out early because of the broken fibula, which is going to knock him out possibly for the season. He's on IR. The defense, as bad as it's been, they had those two guys. Now they don't even have that. And man, how they're going to get by here against Miami, which not to say Miami is all that. For all that Tua gets, dogged on, which is unjustifiable, it is mostly about the contract. I mean, not to say that he's a top half of the league quarterback, but he could play. He can make plays. Jalen Waddle, speed receiver, that's terrifying. Devin Achane, oh man. I mean, are we looking at Saquon Barkley performances from last year? The way he can hit the hole and hit the outside and get up the field. We've seen, he's had big plays in games. All that is terrifying, to say the least. And like I said, the defense is now doesn't even have those guys. But I'm curious also, like, what's everybody's plan for tomorrow or for Sunday? I mean, sorry, because it's obviously it's unusual. I don't know if people here go to so I don't know if you guys, whether A, you go to the games, B, you go to like a sports bar, go to your buddy's house, tailgate, whatever it might be at 9:30 in the morning. I don't know. Maybe that changes things. I'm back in the day when I would go out for games, there was always a few sports bars in Bethesda that I went to. Typically, Chattered was my go-to for many years. Doesn't exist anymore. Um, but 9:30 in the morning is a bit of an aggressive time. I am thinking of turning this on Sunday morning and along with the game day thread and just having some sort of interaction here because, like I said, it'll be unusual. We haven't, they haven't played the international game in a decade, right? So all that's interesting to say the least. I, I don't know about you guys. I'm not. I get what the NFL is doing, trying to expand the brand and all these kinds of things, and that there's countries around the world. It's not just the U.S. or it's not just the NFL trying to impose the sport on others. That the rest of the world is also interested in the NFL. I mean, I if you look at addictions in this country, I'm not making light of cigarettes or alcohol or opioids or anything along those lines. That's like much. But in terms of things that we are addicted to in this country, the NFL has got to be very high on the list because no matter how mediocre the product can be at times, no matter how many games they schedule, no matter what time they put these games on, we collectively just do not stop consuming the product. And that's why these international games, people want these games from around the world because they recognize how much we in this country value the NFL products and they want a piece of that wherever they are. So they're going to have games now, next year in Mexico, in Rio. I want to say over in Asia. Is it Singapore? I think Japan eventually. I wouldn't be a fan of Washington playing in one every year. And like I said, I think there's going to be too many of these games, to be super honest, but I get it. but yeah, this is fine. I mean, my hope is if they are in one next year or whenever the next one is, that we're gonna get there. Like I said, ooh, Mike Smeltz has joined. If Mike Smeltz wants to tag in and talk to me, he's got carte blanche to do that. Um, uh, you know, not trying to hard run this, but I didn't go in part just if this whole venture had started months earlier, maybe I would have done things differently. And it's not the way I couldn't have justified. No, that we I could have afforded it. I just by the time I sort of got down to figuring out what to do and looking ahead to where else I want to spend money on, going to the combine, flipping the Senior Bowl maybe back in my rotation this year. Not to mention the remaining games. It didn't work out. But I'm hoping that next time they're somewhere. I personally would prefer Europe myself um, to other places, but that's a me thing, and I don't think they're going to factor that in, even though they should. Jerks. All right, let me see here. Let me who Steve, living in the UK, I love the Europe games, but feel the fans pain as the Premier League constantly messing with kickoff times and dates. I mean, just this stretch of games for Washington, right? I mean, the Bears game was a national TV game. The Chiefs were on a Monday night. Um, this game is a early morning. They come back after the bye week. It's a Sunday night. I don't know how, honestly, like Kansas City fans or even Dallas fans to a degree, how they do it. You're only playing these crazy games. I mean, there is nothing more American than like a 1 o'clock Sunday game. And here on the East Coast, we're afforded the traditional Sunday 1 o'clock time slots, and oh man, it's just the best. You start your day, you do whatever you got to do in the morning, you get hunkered in. Yeah, if you're focused on the one game, you do kind of miss all the other. Sorry, you miss all the other, or you not miss, but you're competing with all the other games that are on. But and obviously there's fantasy and gambling and all these kinds of things. But a lot of you guys have multiple TVs or with your phones or laptops, you can do multiple things. And my guy Mike Smeltz is joining us here. Very excited for this. Um,
Hey, what's up?
letting Michael get plugged in. Michael, welcome back. I've not talked to you for a couple of weeks as this team has gone a bit further down the skids. How you holding in there?
Oh yeah. I was at the Seahawks game in person. My friend's daughter was a junior force or is a junior force cheerleader. So it was me, my friends, and a bunch of kids at that Seahawks game. And basically they witnessed a murder on the field. So that was great. Everything's good. This has been a good season, Ben. Congrats on having a Substack on the best season ever. Woo! We did it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, yeah, if I could have, like everyone when I started to do this, I was like, hey, it's awesome though. You get to cover a really good team, Jaden Daniels, blah blah blah. I'm
Yep.
like, yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Well, too bad this wasn't last year. Although you never know how these things go. Like last year, I think the issue was so many people were, while thrilled about Snyder selling, were still not completely ready to be, emotionally open
Yeah.
to this
Yeah.
team. And, even though Jaden Daniels is exciting, who knew, coming off a 4-win season, not to mention everything else. And then eventually, by the time things got rolling, people started to get invested, and that's why it feels like such a kick in the crotch right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
with what's going on.
Um, yeah, it's a great season. We'll be okay. I'm excited to keep watching, I guess. So we'll see.
Well, I know you're happy that despite everything that's going on, Tress Way still just doing his thing out there for the Commanders. I mean, I know that's your number
Uh,
one thing.
I think he's the problem. I think if they got rid of him, this team would turn itself around. For people that don't know, I've been infuriated for years. When this team was really bad, Tressway was the MVP of this team, and he was overcovered. And I was so thankful last year we stopped talking about Tressway. The only thing we talked about Tressway was the fact that he didn't punt the ball ever. What was it?
Well,
Wasn't there some? But now he's punting it again. Yeah. He's
Well, he
back.
also had to give up his number 5, or didn't have to, but he gave up his number 5. That was the other big
Good.
Tressway
Good.
story.
As he should. He's a punter. He doesn't deserve. He can be whatever number is given to him. He can be 49, the worst number in football. Thank you. Someone's giving me a heart. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I hear you. What's yeah? I don't remember when the last time you probably you might because you have a better memory than me. I don't remember the last time you were on, but obviously it's been 5 game losing streak, 4 games in a row, losing by at least 20 points. Only the third team in the last 35 years to
Yeah.
have done that. Injuries galore. I wrote a story this week saying, "Look, you can call it an excuse or bad luck, but the injuries have just ruined this thing. Like it's exposed the other issues, lack of depth, some defensive issues, but the injuries are undeniable how they have just murdered this team. But what's been your main takeaway for the last month or so here as this thing has gotten worse seemingly week over week?
Yeah. And I'll try not to go like too reactionary. But I guess the thing is like, okay, we used to have this like godlike opinion of Adam Peters, and he's done some good things, but let's also, I think we don't need to consider him like in Adam Peters I trust, or I think we can evaluate him as a normal GM now, which is probably healthier for the fan base than like believing like everything he did was great, because obviously it's not. Like there's plenty of draft picks who are not doing super great on this team. The Marshawn Lattimore is one of the worst trades in the past few years in the NFL. Um,
Wow, terrible.
Undeniable. The amount that they gave, listen, the amount that they gave up, everyone said this isn't nothing new. The amount that they gave up for a guy who was injured, who came to the team injured, who was bad when he played, starts this year, was bad when he played, and now is hurt. Part of the injury equation is, of course, when you when you have the oldest team in the NFL, your team's going to get hurt, and that's what happened. And so
Well,
this
by the
is,
way, just to
yeah,
and
please.
I'm not so much pushing back on this, but just like as acknowledgement, like let's talk about the guys who were hurt in terms of the old guys. Jaden Daniels, not an old guy. Dorrance Armstrong is I think 28, so not an old guy in the
Old,
way like we're talking about the 30
old,
something year old.
old. Yeah,
28's old? Man,
yeah, yeah.
oh my
He's
god.
yeah.
You're making me feel
Good.
like I'm literally 1,000 right now.
Huh.
If we're saying that. Um, but like Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz, they're still playing. They don't miss games. Laramie Tunsil,
Can I
he's
ask you
playing.
how is Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz? How are they playing?
Well, that's different. I'm just saying in
Yes,
terms of the
they are
injuries.
playing.
Yeah, I mean, Trey Amos just got knocked out. I'm just saying
They
that like the injuries are not necessarily about them being old. It's
sure.
just an insane amount. I mean, even like with Terry. I mean, if we're gonna play the 30-year-old, he's ancient thing, but that it uh, it's not the age has not been the determining factor in the injuries, but the
Well,
injuries have just
true.
murdered them.
Yeah, but I would say the age thing is also uh part and parcel with speed, right?
Yeah.
This is seems to be the slowest team in the NFL. And um and so this team looks so bad on the edge. They have no ability to defend, and that's partly age. There was a moment in, maybe it was 2 games ago, when Mariota was playing. I forget. Maybe I guess it was last game, where Mariota early in the game is trying to like scrambles and tries to throw a deep ball to Ertz, where Ertz ran a route and then breaks north on the field like you're supposed to. But Ertz is so slow that he has no shot at getting to the ball. And
Oh, yeah.
and listen, I almost at statue territory for Ertz and Wagner for what they did last year. Okay. But they, it was team building, right? They made team building decisions. And the team building decision that Adam Peters made was he brought back everyone else. Can't argue with that exactly. Brought in Dietrich Wise, old. These are old NFL players for NFL. And so like they made a bunch of decisions where they wanted to load up with veterans because they thought that they could compete. can't argue with the fact that they thought they could compete, but they used a lot of resources to bring back older players, veteran players, as opposed to aiming for that like 25-year-old who maybe has room to grow. And maybe
Yeah, I mean, there's
yeah,
no
go.
argument on that front. I mean, it's in
Yeah,
the sense of like that they went, um,
they went old.
they went too old. I'm trying to find here, somebody. I'll find it. Maybe somebody floated, or somebody took transcribed some conversation I had with Kevin Sheehan some point during the offseason, in which apparently I said, "It sounds smart." I assume I did. Apparently said, "Why are they bringing back so many people from the defense last year that wasn't very good?" And like, was kind of old. And
Yeah.
yeah, they did bring in some new pieces, but it did feel like they were bringing back too much of the band to an extent. But it was like sort of like, how do you sort of, how it goes? If they had not brought back some of these people, and then they start to lose. Oh, how come you didn't bring back the team that was so good last year? Blah blah blah. So
Yeah, and, no, and that's totally understandable. And like, you can go decision by decision and be like, well, if Dietrich Wise didn't get hurt, he would look pretty good. If Jonathan Jones didn't get hurt, maybe he's playing better. If Marshawn Lattimore, he was a captain. Oh, he was a captain for a game, and then he gets hurt. He's been horrible. Let's not. I don't need to talk about Marshawn Lattimore. Um, Bobby Wagner, old. Luvu is not as impactful as Dorrance Armstrong was playing great, and then he gets hurt. Dorrance Armstrong was like the one defender who seemed to be playing. Sanders still has taken a step back. So there's all these factors, all these mini factors that lead to this team being bad this year. It is simply just in the Adam Peters we trust cult. I think the cult's pretty small, and it doesn't mean that he's bad. He's not bad. He's made other good decisions. We actually saw McCaffrey play better before he gets hurt, right? Debo was very impactful, and he's, I think there's a lot going on. The Terry thing, I think his meaning Adam Peters' belief, the reason why he's playing a hard line on Terry is kind of what played out. Like he believes he's very good. Terry needs to play football and play to sort of justify this contract, of course. So like, I'm not saying Adam Peters is bad. I'm just saying he's not. Who's the best NFL GM of all time? I don't know, but
like in recently, like Howie Roseman. I mean, obviously, Bobby Beathard obviously is a sainted figure in the history of this
Bill
franchise.
Polian, right? Like the maybe it was too early to declare him as the best GM in football, and he maybe he's a good. So like even like I'll give an example, and this is a positive thing. John Schneider of the Seahawks drafted great. This is a chart. Drafted horribly and then drafted well. Mickey Loomis in the Saints had that amazing Marshawn Lattimore draft where they got like Marshawn Lattimore, I think, and Michael Thomas, and then like someone else really good. I think Kamara, maybe. There's some, and then they draft bad, and then this is normal. But I'm just saying, right now, what we're experiencing is part of the effect of not great team building, which is older players some who have gotten hurt, some who are just slow as hell. And, we're kind of figuring it out, what happens. And it's the worst stretch of any team has played this season, I think, in the NFL, this current stretch that the Commanders like who's the Jets. I guess how to what like let's look at the stretches. This is the worst stretch that any team has played in the NFL.
But by the way, I would just like to say that like I'm enjoying letting Mike. This is like I can tell this is a bit therapy for Mike to vent, and this is why I encourage everybody here. If you wanna vent, I'm here. I'm here for you. Treat me as your therapist. I'm not promising results that you'll feel better. I'm just saying I'm here to listen. But go ahead.
Well, what can we do, Ben? How do we save this, Ben? How do we save this season? I wish there was like a really great website like Substack I could read that I could track along and understand this team better. I wish there was. There just isn't. But yeah.
Well, I was thinking like the next, like I started that 2026 project before the season, and like how this season affects that roster, and it has gotten, you thought I thought it would be a little bit of a positive thing, right? Oh, this has been happening now. They don't have to worry about this as much. Ooh, this guy got hurt. Okay, and now it is like, man, the next one might be pretty bleak if because like you said, a lot of these draft picks just have not quite worked out. Here's where I'm at. I always think in general with any topic, when things are going south, or even if they're going great, there becomes a point where it gets to be too much. You're familiar with Kevin Sheehan's smell test, right?
Yeah, you named it after me, Mike Smelts. Everyone knows this.
There you go.
Ben. Yeah.
So the basic gist of that is it's not that he's saying I think this team is better than that team or whatever. It's if the general public goes too far in any direction, you go the opposite because ultimately it is like sort of the hive mind, and then I think there's a lot of logic to that. So I try to do that with like talking about these things, and I feel like to a degree we've now gone too far on the. And I'm not quite. This is not about what you just said, but too far on the boy. This team was never good, and this, that, and the other. I think all the injuries exposed the weaknesses, lack of depth, lack of speed, lack of youth.
Mhm.
But they were also 3-2 after 5 games. They beat the Chargers, and whatever. The Chargers were going through some stuff. Washington still went on the road, took care of them, and the Chargers have recovered to be, still one of the better teams in the AFC. But then the next week, Debo pops up on the injury report with a heel issue, doesn't practice, and it's never been the same since. And and again, the offense, I think for the most part, has been competitive, if not decent enough at times. I mean, again, too many injuries and nowhere close to last year. And the defense, it was a Jenga board that just could not afford to lose almost anybody. And once they lost not one, not two, but three defensive ends in the first 7 weeks or whatever it was, that became untenable. But think I think that if like next year they can have reasonable help, forget that we understand the draft and a lot of picks. I don't think like at least on offense, I don't think the offense is like miles away. If they add a speed receiver, the offensive line is pretty much intact. Jaden comes back. Let's just even assume the running back room is largely the same. Add a speed receiver, and maybe you have to figure out what you're doing at tight end. The offense can be back on track. The defense is going to be a much different deal, but and the injuries that they're going to have another year of just massive injuries like this. I mean, you would hope not.
Uh, I would like to watch a Commanders team, Redskins football team that's a good defensive team, like once in my life. Well, like I feel like over the past 20 years, we are the number one in the NFL for giving up 3rd and 18s. It's like
Did
I
you see that?
got
Did you see that clip? The one on the Chris Long.
yes, that guy
And
spoke to it.
the funny thing about that is that I imagine that the Chris Long people fair would view that as just a fan being upset, except what the fan was saying that the best down to get Washington on is being second and long was it's totally true. They've just been murdered, especially earlier in the year of this second and long. And it's like, what are you doing? How is it possible that on this down you're giving up huge yards? 1st and 10, and you give up big yards. All right, it's not good, but I get that. Second and long. How
Well,
are they? What?
and I think that specifically is if you're gonna do I mean, the fact that Joe, God bless Joe Jr., like he moves from the booth to the ground, the sideline, and then where is he gonna be standing now that he's not calling? Is he gonna be standing in the parking lot? I don't know. But
He's
that's unfair, Ben. That's unfair. That's not nice what I just said. But
no.
that giving up the 3rd and 18 or the 2nd and 25 to make it a 3rd and 5, that's defensive coordinator-ness, right? Of course, it's player-led, but it means that there's something systemic. You're not coordinating the defense at a high enough level. I don't think this team's going to suddenly turn around because Dan Quinn's going to be calling the defense. We were told many, many times how close Dan Quinn and Joe Witt are when they came over here, right?
Right.
And Joe Witt Jr. has spoken very beautifully about Dan Quinn. And Dan Quinn is going to have to cook a meal with these ingredients, which are not bought from the finest of grocery stores at this point. Um, the only thing that's been so stressful, not the only thing, one of the things is this team is just it gets out of hand so fast that I remember earlier this year, listening to like Mina Kimes and Robert Mays, all these people I love. That oh, how exciting the Commanders' run game is, and they can do all these fun pulling and all this adjustments and all these amazing things. Cliff can't even do that because I feel like every time we start the game, let's say we start with the ball, we're a 3 and out. It's a touchdown, turnover our side, touchdown, game over. And like this team has lost the narrative so quickly in games that they don't whatever game plan they came in with. It's like when my wife is away and I have 3 kids and I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old and an 8-month-old and I have a plan. That plan is torn to shreds when my 7-year-old punches my 5-year-old and my 8-month-old is sick or like I understand. I am Dan Quinn and I know how hard it is to have a plan. It's just I would like what I want in Miami, not in Miami, in Madrid against Miami is like I just want to see a competent game because if it continues, Ben, to not be competent, other people will be removed from booths and sidelines and be sent out of town and left in Madrid, maybe if this keeps happening.
Well, that's the interesting thing about this, right? Like on the one hand, if Dan Quinn, whether it's this game or the rest of the way, if the defense starts to turn around, I mean, I don't want to say that it can't get worse because every week it seemingly gets worse. And like you said, right out of the gate, Seattle and Detroit, just Mike Tyson them. Yeah, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Um, but if Dan Quinn turns it around, we'd be like, okay, well, maybe it was in fact whatever it was with Joe Witt. It was, this was Joe Witt's first time being a defensive coordinator. Maybe there was something being lost there. But if it doesn't turn around with a guy in Dan Quinn who has been a legit defensive coordinator in this league for a long time, okay, well now it starts to go back more toward. And again, the injuries have kind of ruined any realistic evaluation. But it would be kind of like, okay, well, it's not the coaching, it's the personnel or the players in some way, shape, or form. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
that
it, defense is the side of the ball that super relies on talent. Like, yeah, scheme can get you through to some point, but you need the game changers on defense. Like, an offense can kind of make it through scheme and having a quarterback. Like, if you have a quarterback and you have a scheme, you can like we've seen Cliff and the offense with Jaden handle things. Now this year they haven't because Jaden's been hurt, and the pieces have been Chris Moore and Robbie Chosen and other various characters, which I cannot believe these are people in my life right now. But defense, like you need dudes on defense, just like you do on offense, but you really need them on defense. You're not going to suddenly scheme it up on defense with a bunch of backups to backups that is going to change things. Um, so like that's the hard part. But I am interested as a Commanders fan. Like Dan Quinn was a damn good defensive coordinator in Dallas. He took a bad defense in Dallas and made it one of the top defenses. Now he had Micah Parsons and Diggs and Bland. But he kind of made Bland Deron Bland, right? Like on some level, So like he took these guys, and this magic has not been sprinkled on this Commanders team, and maybe it's because he's a head coach and not the defensive coordinator. So I'm willing to give Dan Quinn this Miami game to see, like, okay, let's see what happens here. Maybe it'll be interesting. Except Miami happens to be like one of the fastest teams in the NFL, even though they're not that good. So that's a little scary to see Bobby Wagner isolated on Devon A. Chain. Oh my God, I have nightmares about that, Ben. Absolute
oh,
nightmares.
I'm with you. And then of course, Jordan McGee and Ben Sinnott are questionable for the game. My sense
Oh
is
my
that
God.
Jordan McGee plays. Somebody I heard that they both could be quote unquote game time decisions. We'll see. I don't know. Uh, I didn't get the sense. Well, I don't know. So, but talk to someone. I think McGee probably plays. My guess. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, the Bobby Wagner thing is just it's so tough. Like half the game, in terms of the run game part, it's fine, and he can rush the quarterback with some effectiveness, but I think he's like, to me, if they lose this Miami game or just decide after the bye week, we got to lean into the future. I don't know how they don't put Jordan McGee there. Again, I don't know that Jordan McGee is the answer, but that's also
Yeah.
the point. Like,
I
you
mean,
need to see if he's the answer.
we call linebackers sideline to sideline linebackers. Wagner's hash mark to hash mark. He is he like remember like there's this phrase like he'll tackle someone in a phone booth or something like he only can live in a phone booth. God bless Bobby Wagner. He is incredibly important to what happened to this team last year. Amazingly important. And he's a swell fella. And he is still good in that phone booth. But if I'm moving outside that phone booth, like it's just not going to work. And the problem is that he's paired with Luvu, who really kind of needs to be like he's this chess piece, but he's not sideline to sideline either. And then he's paired with safeties who haven't really shown up in the way that maybe they wanted to them this year. So like it's that sort of thing where in baseball, if you don't have a good catcher, shortstop, and center fielder, your defense stinks. Right now, the defensive tackles aren't doing much besides punching the other team. They're justified because Amon-Ra St. Brown punched like 8 guys before Deron
Is
Payne.
that a Band-Aid on your finger? Are you on the injury report too?
Yeah, yeah. I was slamming my finger. I was so mad at this team. I was so mad. No, it's just whatever. Um, and
That,
then
yeah.
yeah, it's this the core of this defense and the exterior of the defense isn't very good. It's like neither the core nor I don't know what the good part is right now. I like Jacob Martin though. I think he's all right.
But I do think I do think there's like kind of what you're saying there. There is something to that. Like the offense, for the most part, again, it's not close to what it's been, what it was a year ago. But other than like I mean, there were a couple games, but like the Chiefs game in particular, the offense just, I mean, they sort of moved the ball in the beginning, but just didn't get any points or whatever. And they went for fourth down a lot because they felt they had to it logically. The offense, most of the time with Mariota, has been fine. I'm not saying it's been great. I'm not saying it's going to win you a tons of games, but it's been fine, even without all the pieces that they don't have, because there's something about the scheme or Cliff's play calling or what have you that works. Defensively, they have lost a ton of pieces, and then at some point when you just don't have the talent, it kind of almost doesn't matter at some level, especially when there isn't one guy who's like a true game wrecker, who I was in talking to Wagner at some point. He was telling me that at one point with the Rams, he's going through it. I got Aaron Donald as a teammate. I got Jalen Ramsey as a teammate. Mentioned some other guys, and then they were like all hurt. And like the guy in front of me was like some guy who they just got signed like to the team like that day or the day before, and that's where this team is at. But they don't have peak Bobby Wagner. They don't have an Aaron Donald. Like they don't have that guy on that side of the ball. So you start taking pieces away, and it's just it's all tough. I thought the thing that was just so funny is the wrong word, but the epitome of where they're at is like if you had to pick one thing from the last game, they're like, okay, maybe this is a positive. Just to pick something, you might say,
Sure.
hey, maybe Traylon Burks is helpful, former first round pick. He's got good
He's great.
size, made
Yeah.
some catches, all that. Oh, what? He's not playing in Spain because he's got to have a surgery on his finger. Of course, of course, that's where this team is at. So I don't know. At some point, like I said,
I am kind of excited that hey, Adam Peters is back on it. He grabbed Traylon Burks and he looks pretty good. He was like a wide receiver too here. It's embarrassing. It's like
well,
we this
I mean, that's the thing. Last year, Noah Brown got cut by Houston, and we were all like, "Oh, if they signed him, he could be their number two." And obviously, that receiver room last year worked out, but it's not like I look, I get it. We all think we agree. It would have been cool if say Zacchaeus had stayed, but again, going back to the last year, I tell you, hey, here's the receiver room beyond Terry McLaurin. De'Ami Brown, who's done nothing in 3 years. Olamide Zacchaeus, who had some success in the past, but had 10 catches the year before. Noah Brown, who just got cut because he can't stay healthy, and he's never been like some dynamite guys, had some good games, but not consistently enough. And Jamison Crowder, who bounces around the league. Oh, there's also Luke McCaffrey, who was a quarterback, a couple years prior in college. That's your receiver room. Nobody was going, wow, look at this room, but it worked because they at least stayed healthy, and then where there were, and obviously so did Terry. And then this year, it's just a complete and utter disaster. Um, you know, I
Yeah,
I don't know. That's
well, I was kind of saying this before Jaden got hurt. I think the last time I was on your show, I did say this, which is like many a great quarterback has taken bad wide receiver rooms and made them good.
sure.
And I can't even level that criticism because he just hasn't played. So and I will say, like everyone, if you want to feel a little more comforted, scan around at how De'Ami Brown's doing. Zakia, like Zacchaeus and De'Ami Brown aren't lighting up the world. Zacchaeus has had like one good game. De'Ami Brown hasn't done anything. So it's not like, if you're trying to feel better about Adam Peters, he let those guys go. They haven't blown up anywhere else. That I guess that's the sign of comfort and
Yeah.
Schadenfreude-esque
When
feeling.
I'm a firm believer, as everybody knows, in like not spending a ton on the receiver room especially when you have a great quarterback, because that guy can lift you up. The problem is, and this is why I said with this group, is that it isn't just any receiver. The person has to have specific skills, i.e., De'Ami Brown could at least get deep. He also was a pretty physical guy, in that last year in terms of being a blocker and getting on screens and running through some screens. But it's not like he's improved that much as a receiver. And like you said, it's not like he's done much in Jacksonville, but he had at least those specific kind of skill sets. And the, they just don't have speed. It's baffling to some degree how they put the roster together in that regard. But again, you never factor in injuries. What's your Sunday plan going to be? Did we already discuss this? Like,
I
are
know
you?
you texted me. I'm going to be at a friend's house. It's going to
No,
be
I
like
just mean
a
like independent of this. I just mean like watching a game. You're going to be.
uh,
Yeah. What are you
watch.
doing for? Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do like a brunch deal at someone's house to watch the game with the kid, like all the kids and all this stuff. Um, and it's a nice idea. It's an idea my wife and my wife's friend created in their minds to think, isn't this lovely? Well, they're going to get bagels and we're going to eat bagels and watch the Commanders. Like, oh, what a lovely idea. They don't understand how I'm going to, I'm not going to be a person to be around if this game stinks. Like, what do they expect? They expect this to be a beautiful moment for our family. It's going to be. I'm going to be a mess. I'm going to be angry, and I
Like
feel
like
the
if
rest of my day will be awful.
people have watch parties for like say the Oscars or something.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
unless you are an investor in some film, or like you're just a crazy, crazy fan of, you know, pick your as Zendaya or George Clooney, whatever, your night's not going to be ruined if they don't win that category. Eh, This is very different, and especially the way things have been going. If I mean, look, if they get it to the very end of the game and lose on the last second play, that will be sucky. But your ride to that point will feel a lot better probably. When you're down 28-0 before halftime, and the other team is just like, dude, we can just do whatever we want. Um,
Well,
that's a completely different deal. I'm not saying Miami will
yeah.
be able to call the score, but I don't
Well, I've thought about this a lot as a Commanders fan. Is if the Commanders ever make the Super Bowl, like I thought about it last year, obviously because they got to the NFC Championship game, and I'm like, how would I handle that? Right. And the classic thing is like, do you try to go to the game? Do you have a big party, or do you watch it by yourself?
yeah.
Right. Or go to a bar. Right. And like, I'm a watch it. If the Commanders are in the Super Bowl, I'm watching it by myself. My sons will be with me. But if they say a one word against the Commanders, I'm throwing them out of the house. They're going to go chop wood in the back because it's like, I don't want any of that. But obviously, this is a lower stakes game. I won't be quite that psychotic. But to me, if my team's in the Super Bowl, I know I will be told to go to a party. but there's almost nothing I want to do less in the world than be around a whole bunch of people, a quarter of whom have don't care, maybe one of whom is actively rooting for the other team. No, absolutely not. That's the least fun I'll ever have in my life.
Well, I'll say this, this is unfortunately for me the second game I won't be at this year. I didn't go to the Dallas game, but I say unfortunate almost just from like you know, an expectation or an obligation of the person who has the job that I have. But in terms of actually watching the game, if I could never go to the game, I would be in a happier place. I mean, there's something like if I could watch the game at home or in a private room, not for the same reasons you're talking about, but just the distractions. I can focus how I want. I can like, rewind, play if I want to look at something. Whereas when you're in the press box, even though everybody's talking about the same thing, a lot of talking.
About how bad the food is or something. That's all they talk about.
Well, that sorry, Josh Harrison people, that does come up a little bit this year. It's not been
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
but
I'll talk to Josh. Don't worry.
yeah, please work on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would much rather watch it in peace. And I felt like the Dallas game. I felt like I almost had a better read, especially in real time, of what was happening. I mean, it wasn't great there either, but like because I could see the whole thing. Whereas at the game, you're stuck. We have in Washington, we have terrible seats behind the end zone closest to where they come out. So anything beyond the 50, you can't even really see. And like I said, in general, I'm with you. I would rather, and when it was in fan mode. Um, yes, I was not always a big fan of Super Bowl parties. Now, granted, when they were in the Super Bowl, I was, relatively a kid. So, going to like the bar wasn't really an option necessarily,
Yeah.
per se. But yeah, I'm with you. It's interesting. I think I'm gonna. My goal is to wake up, get the coffee, maybe get my own bagel sandwich, come back, and then turn this on and see what happens and go from there.
Um, I will try to give one optimistic thing.
Great.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
And let's use Miami as an example. That situation in Miami looked about as bad as a team could look at one point during their season. And they beat the Buffalo Bills last week. And they were riding around in blue, like garbage cans. The players were inside the locker room. They're pushing around like they were children. And so, you know, we this is the NFL. It's a long season. Teams go through this. It would be quite dramatic and unusual, in fact, if the Commanders continue to be this bad, as they have in the past few games. So, whatever needs to happen for them to like, and I'm not here for a playoff run. I'm not expecting, but yeah, sure. Am I looking at their standings and looking where they are in the draft position? And do I care about that? I do. But this is one of the few times in my life where I actually don't want this team to tank because they were so good last year and it would damage so much of the culture momentum that they built last year if they just tanked. And while, yes, as Thad says, an infusion of starter level talent would be nice. It would be nice to imagine a world where this team drafts, that like linebacker from Ohio State who's 6'4", 220 and is actually good. He's not Isaiah Simmons, who was never good. And then remember when they were talking about potentially drafting him? He's
Wait, is it
actually
that's the example you went with of a linebacker being picked in the first round who people were telling you was going to be good and then wasn't? That's the example you go with?
what? Well, what do you mean, Jamin?
Yeah.
Jamin Davis, who the 1 year wonder, who was going to be a backup until like there was the devastating injury to one of the other players at Kentucky, and then he became the starter because of that injury. Yeah, Jamin Davis got picked up, I think, by a team this week.
Yeah, he
Um,
got somebody got promoted him to the
Honestly, we can use Jamin Davis right now. I would if we had Jamin Davis on the edge right now, I'd be much happier than what's happening on this team. We could use him anyway. So this team can turn. I want to get back to where I can watch a football game and enjoy the full football game versus not enjoying a single second of the game. And if
and
we can get back there, then I'll be okay.
yeah, and to use Miami as an example, you pointed that they were being viewed as like the worst team in the league for weeks. This was viewed as the game. Hey, if Washington can just pull off a win against KC or Seattle or Detroit, this one's a lock. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it. And now Miami's favored in the game. But look, they lost Tyreek Hill. I've said before, I think Miami overinvested in receivers the way they did, spending all the money on Tyreek, trading for him, and then using a high first round pick on Jalen Waddle. That said, with Waddle and Achan, they have two guys who were just fast. And at a base level, this is the lesson Jimmy Johnson I thought taught us all years ago with when he, helped shape that Dallas franchise. I'm not using the C word. Somebody said don't use the C word. I'm not. I'm using Dallas. When Dallas, went on the run that they went on, and obviously they had Aikman and Smith and Irvin, but they just had speed everywhere, and speed kill became a topic. This is the issue with this team, and where I think you could look to Miami. Like, I don't know that Miami is any good, but the fact that they have those two dudes on offense who will run by everybody when given any opportunity, that just makes it so much easier. Last year, even right, all the drives were like 27 play drives, right? It wasn't like they were getting this. I mean, other than the occasional Terry play
Yeah.
here or there, they weren't getting these monster chunk plays. And that's one reason why they've moved on from Brian Robinson to try to, put in somebody else back there. But they've got to get speed. I don't really even care what you can tell me it's a running back, a receiver, a tight end, whatever it is, they've got to get more speed on that field. And if they do that, then their baseline rises and you hope that that player turns into like a legitimate weapon, not the way like Diami was, where ultimately you just found a way to use it. But they need speed, and the same thing on defense, of course. Like they just don't have, you know, there's sometimes a guy may not know where he's going, but he gets there fast, and there's something to be said for that as a positive. Like you got to at least have guys who could get somewhere, even if they don't quite always know how they're getting there. And yeah, I mean that's the problem. And I'm with you on the not tanking part because they have the quarterback. The only caveat is if the higher the pick, obviously, the better return you can get on a trade down, and that's why they need to have. If it goes that way, and they were to be a bottom 5 or 8 team, they need quarterbacks in this draft to look a lot better than they do right now. I in the mock draft I did this week, and I talked to um, a guy that's a scouting director for a team, and he could not be less excited about the quarterbacks. Just couldn't. Even in my this look, we just have to do something here to try to start this conversation. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, don't give a quarterback here, don't put him there. They need the quarterbacks to move up because that's going to get you the best trade value going back. And we know they don't have a second, they don't have a fourth, and they need more picks. So that's the only thing about being anti-tanking. But in general, I'm with you. I'm not worried about this year about them losing games the way I was like in 2023.
I mean, because the reality of, okay, let's say they lose to Miami, they have a bye week, they have Denver, Minnesota, Giants, Philly, Dallas, Philly, right? Okay. So let's just take Denver, Philly as losses. The competitive games could be at Minnesota, but that they would be like 8 point underdog in that game, at least right now. So then it's New York and Dallas, and it's like Dallas on Christmas Day, mind you, um, on Netflix. So it it would if this team loses to Miami and then runs the table negatively and loses all those games, that leads to, can Dan Quinn survive that? Right? Like that becomes then, wow, this team hasn't won since, let me go check the record, since October 5th, right? If they lost every game this year. And so then it becomes regime change time. It's not just tanking, right? There's a lot wrong. And that I'm not there yet. It's like Dan Quinn did such a good job last year. I don't think I'm in the territory of being like, I want to replace Dan Quinn. Uh,
Rick Gallagher is
yeah,
telling us he's all
let's
in
do
on.
that.
I think in general, I'm with you on that. I mean, look, I don't like teams at all that just constantly are firing people. The reality is, it takes more than 1 year or even 2 years for whatever you're trying to accomplish to really actually take hold. And you know, I just don't think like you could tell me whatever you want to tell me. Like even with like Joe Witt, again, we'll see because of the fact that Dan Quinn's going to do this, but like they just have too many problems, and it's not all about the coaching. They just have lack of talent on top of the fact that they've got 100 injuries. But you're right, though. Definitely a lot of people are saying, "Get rid of Quinn, get rid of Quinn." Which, oh my god, come on. But yeah, if you go over, I mean, look, they still right now have a worse record than Ron Rivera's last team. That team was 4-5. This team is, was 3-6 at the same point. So we've already seen it's not the same scenario at all, but we just had a team 2 years ago that lost every game from week 9 on or week 10 on, and that led to everybody getting thrown out. And at a minimum, the conversation would happen. And you're right. I don't think that's the way to
Well,
go in terms of. I was asked on the radio the other day how many games do they win let rest of the way. I said 2. I didn't, like, identify the 2. The Giants game is in New York, so who knows? A lot of it will probably come down to, like, is Jackson Dart for example, in that game playing versus although actually now it's Jameis. If it was Russ, I was gonna say that's fine. Jameis is scary. He'll, we know he'll get yards and he'll muck it up, but
yeah, the one thing to add to this, and I gotta go after this,
same.
is the one of the more, I guess, important people right now in the Josh Harris organization is Bob Myers, right? Bob Myers is boys with Adam Peters. And if it ever comes down to like this, like the guy who gets the groceries or the guy who cooks them, Adam Peters has the ear of Bob Myers probably more than Dan Quinn does. And I'm not saying it's going to go down that way this year, but I'm just that is who the and also across the NFL, it seems like GMs get the extra life and the coach doesn't typically. Joe Shane is remaining with the Giants and Dayball isn't. So like, but we're not there yet. I think we're
Well,
gonna
this is
we're gonna we're gonna beat Miami and then we'll be back, baby. We'll be back.
Here, there you go. This is why I always just say I'm more of a process than a results guy because you can do the right things and it doesn't work out. But if you do the wrong things, it's really hard to work out. I generally think they've done the right things, but yeah, I questioned the receiver room. As somebody transcribed, I questioned bringing back so many guys from this defense. The age thing has been a concern, but you know, they couldn't just throw away the momentum from last year. That's what they did. Mike, you rock. Go do your thing. Follow Mike on LinkedIn. As always, that's where he's
Yep.
where he makes his move. And we'll talk later.
We'll see.
Hey man. All right, I'm gonna jump here too. Thanks you guys. It's been fun. An hour has gone by. I don't think that was the most uplifting conversation. But what are you going to expect at this time? Like I said, I'm kind of thinking about doing a Sunday morning bit here. So if you're interested, let me know. And if not, we'll see you. Maybe we'll see you on Sunday. Hang in there, guys. We'll get through this.